It is a Friday. Yesterday, was it yesterday? I talked about this new nutritional disclosure requirement on beer bottles and cans, right? On beer. And there's been a big, consumer thing about disclosing the calories and the nutritional components and value and so forth. And nobody can be against this. I mean, this is a slam dunk. You have to be in favor of transparency and disclosure. Until you realize the politics behind the thing. It turns out the big beer makers who turn out 7 trillion bottles of, 1 or 2 or 3 lines of beer have no problem adding whatever to the bottle or can is required by the current fad. And they're happy to do it because they know that the cost to a small craft brewer, even people like Sam Adams that do, some beer, but just the cost of adding that is going to make that beer more expensive and help the guys, the Coors and Buds and whoever, Millers, to do what they do. Now, they have a great beer, but there's one thing about beer that I know. I only know one thing about beer, even though we made some in college, and occasionally in the middle of the night there would be an explosion, as the top would go off the beer. We did this in the basement, thank goodness. Anyway, getting back to the subject, the only thing I know about beer is the fresher the beer, the better. So I really love the local, craft brewers that have sprung up all over the country. And there's one of them, I think it went back to 1996, that Greg Koch and Steve Wagner started Stone Brewing Company in Escondido, California, in San Diego County. And right at this moment, I am enjoying, courtesy of Greg, the sublimely self-righteous beer, which I thought was appropriate for the show and for a Friday. And I just thought to myself, these guys need all the support they can get. They don't need any more well, I didn't know whether, I obviously got my analysis of it, but I don't make beer, so I thought I'd get Greg and find out if he's of the same mind. Greg Koch of Stone Brewing Company. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Hello, Roger. Good afternoon.
It's been a long time.
I know it has. I think we first was on your show probably in 97.
Right after you guys started the company.
Right.
You came in with all kinds of beers, and we had the we had one afternoon I don't even remember anymore, but we enjoyed a lot of beer. It was because again, part of the thing I did on the show and I did since the beginning was promote local businesses and people that I really like and respect, and the product is great. And I appreciate, as a result, I guess, of me talking about this crazy new regulation, your guy over there said we're going to send you over some beer in a nice mug that says Stone. I love it.
And you said, no, please don't. Please don't.
No, that's not what I said. Greg Koch with us from Stone Brewing Company. So, Greg, you've undoubtedly heard about this new nutritional disclosure thing. What do you think?
Well, we have a particularly unique position on this because, at Stone Brewing, because I don't know if you're aware, I actually have the world record for the most words on a bottle of beer on a label. We completely fill up the entire bottle 360 degrees with our writings, the famous Arrogant Bastard Ale writing and all of our gargoyles, and we like pretty fanciful graphics. And so it's going to change. It's going to gut just our chance to communicate with people. So, and you're right. Your analysis of saying that this is a piece of cake for the big boys to do it on their very narrow range of brands, and they can, they can analyze all their beers up, down, sideways, for the lab analysis and everything. But for a small brewer, and even for Stone, we could do it. We could do it. Be a royal pain in the neck, but we're the 15th largest craft brewery in the United States out of 1,700.
Wow.
There's so many that this would be, and it would be a burden on us, yes. And I think an unreasonable one, but way more unreasonable for, at least 1,600 of the breweries here in the United States.
It'd be a killer for those small batch guys. I'm looking at your bottle. You're absolutely right. I mean, first of all, there's this, good grief, it would take me an hour to read it here. The Sublimely Self-Righteous Ale has got 3 giant paragraphs of description here, plus There's all kinds of other stuff you're required already to do. There's a California redemption value. There's your disclosure, brewed and bottled by. There's your graphics. And then there's the government warning. We've already got a Surgeon General's warning here. Women should not drink during pregnancy because of the risk of birth defects, and all that stuff. But you do have a kind of interesting description here of what's going on with this, with you and this beer. It's pretty neat. I mean, it's in such writing that if I was actually drinking this beer in any quantity at all, I'd never be able to read this writing. This is very, very small print.
Yeah, we actually have the Stone Old Guardian Barley Wine, which is actually coming out next week. It's a once-a-year special release, and it has the most words of any of them. And it's my theory that if you take the first sip before you read the first word, you cannot finish it.
You're done.
You cannot finish reading it.
You're done. Now, we had a listener question yesterday I could not answer. You're my beer expert, Greg Koch, with us from Stone Brewing Company. That said, okay, I understand the bottles and the cans and the disclosure and all that, but what about draft beer? Where are they going to disclose the stuff in draft beer if they're going to disclose it, the nutritional value and all the rest of that information? What about draft?
There is no current talk by the TTB, the Tax and Trade Bureau, which regulates the labels here in the United States. There's no talk about of any form of doing that. So I think maybe on the keg collar, which would be something that only the back of the house, that's back in the cooler for the bar or restaurant. So
yeah, that's not going to disclose anything. Not to the customer.
And I think personally, I think the disclosure is a little bit more important between is it a processed generic ingredients, or is it it's like the difference between your corner bakery and Wonder Bread. Obviously one is fresh, local, natural, or fresh, natural, honest ingredients, and one is a laundry list of God knows what. Yeah, no, that's true. That's what you guys should go to. You guys got to make Bud disclose what they got in there. I think, personally, you know what? If they're going to make us do the nutritional facts, make them put every damn ingredient on the label. I'm with you, Roger. In the United States, you can put 37 ingredients and additives into your beer and still label it pure.
No.
Talk about lobbying.
Really? Those guys must own congressmen.
Well,
That's really wild. I didn't know that. 37?
37 and still labeled pure. You know what? In the Stone Sublimely Self-Righteous ale you're drinking right now, 4 ingredients.
What are the 4 ingredients?
Barley, hops, water, and yeast. That's it.
Well, there's no chemicals? I don't drink anything that doesn't have chemicals. Now, wait a second. And here's another question we had from our listeners. I didn't know how to answer. I don't know anything about these things. What about the Mexican breweries? I mean, down here and I think across the country now, you got Pacifico and Tecate and Sapporo, I guess, from Japan and what have you. What about the foreigners?
Brewed in Canada, but
okay, Canada. But in other words, what about the foreign beers? Are they going to have to comply with this thing?
Yeah, all beers sold in the United States would have to comply. I think in the 95% of the beer that's sold here in the United States is of the fizzy yellow beer variety that you're describing. The generic commodity level beer that just it's got different labels and come from different countries, but it's all the same stuff.
Right.
They're like you said, it's not going to be a problem at all for them to do that. So perhaps one approach might be, once you're, say, a million barrels or 2 million barrels, or actually, let's say, once you're outside of the designation, the governmental designation of a small brewer. If they think if the big brewers are so behind this.
Yeah. All right, so
it's just like what they've done with the nutritional labeling for chain restaurants. All the fast food restaurants, they say, look, McDonald's and Burger King and so on, you're big enough, you can do this. But a mom and pop restaurant, it's unrealistically burdensome.
Just figuring out what the hell's in the. I mean, your chef throws in another little extra something, and now we have to figure out what the nutritional value is so we can disclose it.
And
otherwise,
how
pay
do
some
you
huge
send
fine.
meal off to a lab to have it, et cetera? So it couldn't be done. So. When it's overly formulaic and generic and commodity, well, that's a different side of the equation, but we're on the artisanal side.
Greg Koch, Stone Brewing. Let's talk about your business for a minute. In this recession, sales gone up, down, sideways? What happened?
Sales have been screaming. We have our restaurant and our beer sales have been going up dramatically every year, and the last couple of years have been no exception.
So the recession didn't hurt you at all?
Craft beer in the United States has been the fastest growing beer segment. So that's faster than the major brand commodities, faster than imported beers, faster than wine or spirits for the last 7 of the last 10 years. Craft beer is America's success story. It's small entrepreneurs, as you know, creating things of interest, of character, locally. Craft beer has transformed the landscape of America over the last couple of decades, and we're just part of this artisanal movement towards doing things real and local.
Yeah, it's interesting.
With passion. Yeah.
Now tell me about you've got a number of these beers out yourself. Which one's selling the best? I mean, what's your best seller?
Our number one best seller is Stone IPA, and then behind that is of course the famous or the infamous Arrogant Bastard Ale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm drinking Sublimely Self-Righteous, which I feel good about, and in fact I feel righteous about, actually.
Righteous. Well, you should pat yourself on the back for a job well done, which is of course you can do just by taking a sip.
That's what I think, too. Greg Koch. Greg, thanks so much. Stone Brewing Company, folks, if you have not engaged yourself with a Stone Brewing product, please do so because you will find excellent beer. And we have enjoyed it for all the years since these guys got started here. Steve Wagner with you still?
Oh, yeah. The two of us are still running the company, and things are going strong. We opened our doors 15 years ago with 4 people, and we now have 355.
You have 355 employees?
Yeah, well, that's also with our restaurant. We have a distribution division here in Southern California.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, how far are you distributed now around the country? I mean, I've got 110 stations listening to this, so where are you exactly? Have you distributed throughout the country or just the state or where?
Throughout the country in 35 states. So our next 2 states coming up are Missouri and Minnesota, but we're in all the larger, the more metropolitan states. I don't know. I don't want to offend anybody that, maybe in a more rural state, but we're in, the higher population states and continuing to get out there as best we can.
Well, that's great because I keep getting feedback and people will know about, and I'm surprised they do, frankly. I should have caught up on this. That they know about Stone Brewing. Oh, wait a minute, you mean Stone Brewing in Escondido? I mean, these are my guys, So, yeah, and I'm in I'm in Florida or someplace, and they have Stone Brewing. So I really appreciate you guys. You guys have been such a great success story, and I want to thank you again, Greg.
I gotta talk to you about a future. Maybe we can book something and drink some beer in your studio with you. But we're planning on opening a Stone Brewing Company in Europe, and we'll be the first American craft brewer to own and operate our own brewery in Europe. And we're excited about this project.
That is fabulous. Not to mention the fact you get tax-deductible trips to Europe. I like this whole thing.
Don't uncover my plan there in front of everybody, Roger.
Absolutely. Listen, Greg, we'll get together. I appreciate your being on today. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Greg Koch, Stone Brewing. Back after this.